Good evening, everyone. I'm Christa Wessel from your favorite radio station, I hope, All Classical FM, 89.9. Yay! Thank you for coming tonight. I've got with me today a special guest who I adore, Nancy Ives. She is the principal cellist of our Oregon Symphony. Thanks for joining me, Nancy.
Hi, nice to see you all. I've been looking forward to this, getting to just chat with Christa and share the experience I've been having this week with everyone.
Yeah, well, my guess is that not that many people here tonight have had the chance to sit down and talk with you before, to know your story. How long have you been with the symphony?
9 years.
9?
Yeah.
So amongst your compatriots in the cello section, are you the longest tenured, or have...
Oh, no. No, not at all. Although we do have, some new members. Our newest member is assistant principal cello, Marilyn de Oliveira. This is her first season. But no, there are several people who've been here for, about 30 years.
30?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not speaking out of turn. I think
in your cello section?
Yeah.
Wow.
We have a wealth of experience in our cello section.
And where did you come to the symphony from?
I was a New York freelancer.
And you just decided to settle out west? What brought you here?
Always wanted to live in Portland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a dream fulfilled, isn't it?
It really is.
Maybe, I wonder if you recognize Nancy's last name, Ives? She's got a very famous relative.
Yeah, Charles Ives, the composer. People often say, "Oh, you're not related, are you?" And I go, "Well, yeah." It's distant. He's my great-grandfather's cousin. So if someone can tell me how to say that more succinctly, I'd be grateful. I think first cousin thrice removed or something like that.
Great-grandfather's cousin.
Well, I do have an anecdote about that that I have shared before on the radio on Club Mod. So if you've heard it, excuse me. But we didn't have any contact with the family exactly. It's remote enough. And my dad's branch of the family had moved out west, not in Connecticut, where Charles Ives' family is rooted. But I heard a recording of him playing and singing this song that has like quotes of "over there." It's a very patriotic song. When I was in a graduate seminars, the first time I heard this. Now, my grandfather and my father were avid barber shoppers, so I've heard them sing. At the time, it's my grandfather I was thinking of. When I heard Charles Ives, I was stunned that the timbre of the voice was familiar to me. I'm like, I really am related. It sounds just like my grandfather. It was really cool. I literally got, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, So, yeah, you never forget a moment like that. It's really cool.
So you've got a musical family, clearly.
Yes. My mom, who's here tonight, right here, I can see you.
Hi, Mom.
Plays viola in a community orchestra in Kansas, and I have a violinist sister and a cellist sister and a singer sister.
Goodness gracious. And were you drawn to the cello at a very young age? Were you one of these prodigies?
Well, Mom took us, my sister, who's next after me, I'm the oldest, to the Suzuki program at Southern Methodist University, where we lived at the time. And they started me on violin and her on cello. Big mistake. Neither of us cared for it. So they switched like 2 weeks later, and she's still a violinist and I'm still a cellist, and we're both stereotypical personality types for our instrument. So
what would that be?
Well, this is always treading on delicate ground. Violinists tend to be type A personalities, and cellists tend to be just a little more, mellow.
Down to earth.
Yeah, well, think about it. How many violin societies do you know where people get together and play in big ensembles? Thunderous silence. The Oregon Cello Society is thriving and has concerts with 80 cellos all together every other year, and it's not unusual. So yeah, it's just a different thing. I don't know.
A little bit quirkier, maybe.
Maybe. Although I think the violists.
Oh, well, we won't even go there. So Nancy sits the principal chair of the cello section, and I'm wondering if you could tell me what makes your position differ from any of the other folks in the cello section. What are the responsibilities you have?
Right. Well, chronologically speaking, it starts weeks, even months before the first rehearsal, when I get the music the music's already been prepared by the concertmaster. And
what do you mean by prepared?
He goes through it, and mostly I'm talking bowings right now. And people go, bowings is just like 2 directions, right? Yeah. Oh, with the wealth of complications that can arise. You cannot always just do what's in the music. It just doesn't always create the right articulation or the right, sometimes a slur is too long. A lot of the composers we love were pianists and wrote with phrasing in mind, not the practicalities of the bow. So that's one example. Sometimes we have to do 2 separate notes in the same direction so that we're in the right direction later. There's all kinds of things. It really has an impact on interpretation. If you're really skilled, you can make just about any bowing sound like just about anything. But when you're trying to get, a couple dozen people to do it together in the string section, having it be the same really helps it come together and be natural and be the same. So we all have to be the same, period. And then, ideally, it's something that naturally lends itself to the musical interpretation. So that starts with the concertmaster, and then each of us, the principal second, principal viola, and I, and the principal bass, mark the parts for our section. And we have a wonderful library here, of our music library, and they transfer our markings into all the parts, and make sure the parts are in good shape. So that's the first thing a principal of a string section does. In rehearsal, it's my job to sort of show how things are played, because there's, even with all the details that are in the music and that you're getting from the concertmaster and the conductor. I mean, there's this, there's tiers of detail that is already specified. Still, our individual part, the cello part, can be done multiple ways and meet those requirements. So it's my job to establish what we're going to be doing. It's kind of a consensus. I mean, a section that plays together all the time like we do gets its own groove, we have our things. But there are always questions, and there's both verbal instructions, like I'll turn around and say, short at letter N, or let's do it off the string at letter P, or measure 162, cut off sooner. Literally little instructions like that, and it's hectic because I have to sneak that in between what the conductor wants to do. There's little lulls, and I'll go, short at letter N, I've also learned, you can imagine the discipline on the stage if you've ever witnessed a rehearsal, and if you have a chance. I mean, there's times when you're just going, what are they doing? But you'll feel this sense of we're just always on, because it just moves. It has to keep happening. We're trying to get so much done in so little time. I've learned, though, I cannot just turn around and gaze. Like, say I'm going, hey, who's playing trumpet today? Because sometimes they share duties. I can't do that, because if I turn around, my section, they're so responsive. They're fabulous. They'll be... They think I'm either going to say, we were too loud at letter P, or they're waiting for something, and I can't do that. I don't want to cry wolf.
That's some nice Pavlovian training you got going on there, Nancy.
Well, they've got me trained not to turn around unless I mean it, too. But yes, I know, isn't it great? I mean, they're so responsive. And if I mark something, they mark it. They copy it, and it filters back. All the string sections do that. I mean, that's the way it is. You try not to have the hubbub of having to whisper something and go pss, 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 and pass it back, but sometimes there's no help for that. It just has to be passed back. If it's really important enough, we'll announce it. But a lot of things are able to just filter back because everyone's really alert and knows what to look for.
I was lucky enough to do a pre-concert chat last year with the concertmaster, Junior Wasaki, and we learned a lot about his role as kind of a second-string conductor as concertmaster, and I'm wondering, in your role as principal today, whether that actually will come into play with you, because the Brahms double concerto is going to be played without a conductor tonight.
This is actually more unusual than even you might think. I asked Pinchas Zukerman about, how did this come up? And one of the perks of sitting up front is it's very easy to just chat with the conductor at the breaks and things like that. And he said that it happened by accident. Did they tell this story yesterday?
No.
At the radio? Yeah. They were in, I believe it was Denver with the Colorado Philharmonic. I may be misremembering, but they were there, and the conductor, he was conducting and playing, but there was a conductor there to conduct the Brahms. He got horribly sick. And so they just rehearsed without him. And it was kind of, they were like, ooh, this is kind of cool. This is working okay. We can do this. And they were having, trouble maybe finding a replacement at the last second or something like that for the conductor. He said he actually took a vote from the orchestra. Do you want to try it without another conductor? And they were game, and so they did it. Word got around that Pinchas and Amanda would do this, so more orchestras have been asking for it. But it is very challenging, I have to tell you. They play a lot in the piece. I mean, you'll see. I kind of hate to draw your attention to some of what you'll see, but I think that's what you're here for, to get the inside scoop. So
give us the behind-the-scenes dirt, Nancy.
That's right. So when Pinchas is not playing, for instance, when it's Amanda's solo, he will literally conduct with his bow. He'll turn around and conduct.
Will there be a podium like this on stage during the Brahms?
No, she will be on the podium because the cello soloist needs a podium. He'll just be standing. When they're both playing, you will see June doing more movement than usual. Now, it is part of the job of the concertmaster in particular, and of all the principal strings, to give movements that help. That's really one of the main ways. I mean, you have to think, they can't hear us, the people in our sections, because our sound's going that way. So they get body language, and that's how they know what we're doing. And we do consciously exaggerate our body language. You want it to be natural, and then you just turn up the volume a little so that people can read it from... And my section's not large. People aren't very far away, but the violins are larger. People are far away. Well, we really have to turn up the volume to do the Brahms because the winds and brass are also depending on us. And I say us because they can't always... First of all, not everyone can see June. Secondly, the violin part might not always have that moment of the music, the downbeats. It falls a lot to the principal cello to indicate things because of the bass function that we have. So cello, bass, trombone, bassoon, sometimes horn might have things together, and so I'm sort of like a sub-concertmaster for those moments. So I will also be moving more than usual. And
is it scary not having somebody with a big stick keeping time? Well, how does it feel being in the orchestra without that leader there on the podium?
Well, it is like playing chamber music, and that's something almost all of us do now and then.
But it's Brahms.
It's Brahms, and I always think Brahms chamber music is rather symphonic. I should say, just as an aside, another thing I'm enjoying about working with Pinchas Zukerman is he's such a chamber musician as well that he's actually referring to the chamber repertoire as well as the symphonic repertoire when he talks about musical ideas. So it's very holistic. Yeah, it's kind of fun. But it is a little scary, especially people who are in the back can't hear very well. That's why they're depending on our body language to help link them to what's going on in the front, because they really can't hear very well. They're just doing an amazing job, I have to say. I think they're psychic, actually. I'm convinced that's what it is. And some of it is just the musical flow. We rehearsed, so we know what's going to happen. But there is spontaneity involved here. So there are moments that are we're very, very alert.
I bet, because it is a showpiece for the solo violin and cello, and there are little cadenzas, cello cadenzas, where she can do what she wants to do, and you're just waiting without a conductor. When do I come in?
And these are expressive players, and we want them to be able to be free and spontaneous and in the moment. And I'm happy to say I do believe they feel that way. They've been very vocal and generous about saying what a great job we're doing and how much they're enjoying it.
Did you hear what they said on the air at All Classical yesterday? We had them both into the studio for like 20 minutes, half an hour. One of the first things that fell out of Pinchas's mouth was that he was in awe of this orchestra.
We're having such a good week. We're enjoying it so much.
So how have rehearsals been going? Because he has been both on the podium and both here as a soloist.
Yeah.
And nice people to work for.
Utterly. Oh, my goodness. It's just been a joy. we've really been having a good time. It's, just wonderful music making. It feels like playing chamber music in all the best ways. And yeah, we're having a really good, the orchestra's really just all grinning ear to ear.
So in addition to watching for our concertmaster and Nancy and other principal string players being conductors of a sort tonight.
I'm sure the wind players do it as well, by the way.
Right, okay. Also look for Amanda's shoes, right?
Oh, she's very glamorous. I think she mentioned something about having to have a little more sensible shoes for the actual performance. So I don't know. I have a feeling that they won't be schlubby. I'm not to worry about that. Yes, no. In fact, several people have said, do you know anything about her cello? And no, because right the moment when we were chatting, at a break, and I was about to, ask the obligatory, hey, what's your cello? Paloma Griffin from the orchestra came up and said, oh, Christian Louboutin. And the whole conversation went to shoes. They were gorgeous shoes.
I love how well-rounded this orchestra is.
That's right.
So, speaking of Amanda Forsyth, one of the pieces on tonight's concert was written by her father, Malcolm Forsyth, who I have to admit I don't know that much about. I know he was born in South Africa. I know he now lives in Canada. Beyond that, I haven't heard much of his music. I wonder if you could describe to me what this Jubilee Overture is like that we're going to hear starting off the program tonight.
Canada really supports its composers to a really phenomenal degree. You can tell just by the number of there's this and that fellowship and this and that. I mean, just there, and in composers in residence, they really get support. He's just a terrific composer who would blossom, I think, no matter against any odds, because the music's really just you'll hear. This is a student work apparently that we're going to hear tonight. It's an early work. It says in the program notes that after he wrote this, he felt that he didn't have his own unique voice yet, and some of the more recent works definitely show the development of that, which I found interesting. The piece we're going to hear tonight, it's just what it sounds like. It's a great opener. It starts with some really distinctive brass sounds. I guess he played in the brass section. That's why he wrote the special
Malcolm
stuff.
Forsyth. He was a trombonist,
I guess
right?
so. Yeah. So it's really good brass stuff. And then there's, just energetic, rhythmic. There's some sweeping melodies, and then there's lots of nice, energetic stuff. I mean, it's just what it sounds like. I don't know that there's any particular thing that's being celebrated Jubilee-wise, but it definitely describes the atmosphere and the spirit of the piece.
So if this was a student work of his written in the 60s or something, Are you more familiar with some subsequent works of his to see where he went?
Well, I actually have two recordings. I mean, I had these for years, that Amanda Forsyth made of works of her father's. And her fabulous playing has obviously inspired him to write some great things for the cello. I've programmed one of these myself. It's called Pop Cycle, parentheses, Eclectic Suite, and it's the three movement titles would give you a sense of the mood that it's communicating: Potpourri, Song of Light, and Rip Snorter Finale.
Rip Snorter?
Yeah, they're fairly jazz inflected pieces, and we can play little snippets of this. Christa and I were laughing uproariously because the thing I also wanted to play for you on a CD, it's not in the case, it's still in the stereo at home, so excuse me for that. But if you get a chance to check it out, I recommend it highly. This is the name of the CD is also the name of the headliner piece. It's called Electra Rising, and he wrote it for Amanda. It's a cello concerto. It's 4 movements. It shows that mature voice, that individual voice, in several different ways. I mean, it definitely shows the openness to the music, the pop music of the 20th century that this cello and piano piece shows with its jazz inflection. But particularly it shows the African influence. The second movement has an African title and has some rhythmic ostinato that you would associate with African music. And it's really cool. There's just these gorgeous, lush cello cadenzas, and then there's this rhythmic, African-inspired parts. And so I'll just have to leave you in suspense because I can't play any of it for you. But it's really terrific.
You can come tomorrow night when Nancy will have the CD.
I'll have the CD tomorrow.
We'll do this again tomorrow night. Is Malcolm Forsythe a name known to most all cellists then? It sounds like he writes almost extensively for the cello.
Well, I don't think he's known yet, but I think this, on the strength of even just these two pieces alone, that he will be. It takes time. It takes a long time for pieces to filter into the repertoire. And, for instance, the Electro Rising Concerto was written in '95. So, that's one of the important things about a recording like that, is that gets the word out. I wouldn't know about it. It's obviously been played extensively in Canada, and I should ask Amanda where else she's played it. But I'd love to play it. It's really cool. And then I'm not sure how. I don't see years for the pop cycle, but it hasn't been that long. I think, it just takes time for things to sort of work their way out into the world, and it's word of mouth.
I want to spend some more time talking about Pinchas and Amanda. I feel like the stuff in the program about Beethoven Symphony No. 1 is pretty well speaks to what that symphony is all about. A young Beethoven, seeing where he was at the beginning of his symphonic career, working towards the 9th. But I want to, since we have the backstage opportunity to hear what it's like witnessing these two great artists, Pinchas and Amanda, sitting here on stage playing this very romantic piece of music. I want to pry a little bit more.
Oh, well, it is an incredibly romantic piece of music, and it's one of those pieces that whenever a violinist and a cellist, either obviously if they fall in love or if they become dear friends, they want to play it together. And I asked Amanda when they first played it together, and she said, well, we've been married for 6 years and together for 13, and we first played it together before we were together. She said mischievously, I couldn't say that's why we got together, but, it's really romantic. And it really makes me think, and their story it's just, they're clearly, soulmates. It's really, whenever I've seen them play together before when the Zukerman Chamber Players was here. It was either last season.
Chamber Music Northwest?
Yeah, and I heard them play the Kodai duo, and it was just this unanimity and unity of voice was just jaw-dropping, really something. And that's definitely in the Brahms as well.
Yeah, this piece of music, the Brahms, the way the solo cello and solo violin work together, they don't work in opposition that much, but it's this nice dynamic side-by-side that really works well with the couple.
Well, I think that's true. But I also think that's one of the keys to why it's so popular. If you look up on Wikipedia, double concertos for violin and cello. There are a lot of them, and you haven't heard of hardly any of them. Maybe none, except this. This is the flagship double concerto for violin and cello. And a drawback of a double concerto of any kind is how do you keep it from getting repetitious if you want both soloists to present the theme and the orchestra? Instead of two voices, expositing, presenting the theme in the exposition, say, you've got three. And that's exactly how you described it, is what Brahms has managed to avoid. Having that, okay, here it is again. We heard the violin do it, now we're going to hear the cello do it. We get to hear both of them do it, but somehow it doesn't have that, okay, there it is again feeling. And it's that intertwining and, yeah.
When Pinchas Zukerman was on the air yesterday at the radio station, he was talking about how Brahms never got around to writing a cello concerto. I know, it's killing you.
It kills every cellist.
But he also made some kind of allusion to the fact that the orchestra comes in at the very beginning and makes this grand statement, and then almost immediately there's this really nice cello cadenza, almost Brahms' way of saying, sorry, I didn't write you a concerto, but here, have this little thing.
Well, the story is that both after he wrote this and after he heard Dvorak's concerto, because Dvorak, he was kind of mentoring Dvorak, and Dvorak sent his concerto, which of course, is all by itself half of the concerto repertoire for cello. We have a great repertoire, but that's just such a great piece. It gets done a lot. Apparently after seeing the score, Brahms said, you could write a good cello concerto. I should do that. And then he died.
Yeah, this was one of Brahms' last orchestral work.
And I love the story, I believe it's in the program notes, about the genesis of the piece, but it doesn't explain why the cello part is so fabulous, because it's really his attempt to re-ingratiate himself with Joachim, the great violinist. But the cello part is really nice. Maybe it didn't work because Joachim felt like the cello part was too good. I don't know. It's just a wonderful cello part. And cellists really, I think every cellist has an incredible soft spot for Brahms. He wrote us those 2 fabulous sonatas, and then we just love what we get to do in his chamber music and the symphonies. They're all just cello-rific. So it's every cellist's like pain in the heart that Brahms didn't write a concerto just for the cello.
Okay, in our last couple of minutes, I know that you've picked up some really nice anecdotes about Pinchas Zukerman and Isaac Stern. Is that right?
It's something he refers to him a lot, and I know that the work he's doing educating young musicians is really important to him.
Pinchas.
Yeah, and I feel like I can see it. He speaks so fondly of mentors, especially Isaac Stern. We told him we were going to Carnegie, and he said it's just not the same for him to go there without Isaac. It was Carnegie Hall was Isaac Stern's. He was really responsible for keeping it going when it was in a rough patch, and renovating it, and it's kind of like his hall, and so for Pinchas Zukerman, I got the impression it's without Isaac Stern, it's just not the same. He's such an important mentor to him. But yeah, I should tell you, he told me a really cute story, Pinchas Zukerman did, about when he was 11 years old, and Alexander Schneider was taking him to parties with luminaries, to show him off and have him perform. So he's 11 years old, and he said, I came in with my pants tucked into my socks. I have to put the mic down to do this. So apparently he said, that's what I saw Isaac do the night before. So,
and little 11-year-old doing it now.
Can you imagine? Doesn't that sound adorable? And I'm sure he played the heck out of whatever it was.
It's so great to think that so many people look up to Pinchas now as a role model, and he's still looking up to Isaac Stern and others, and he's passing that on. He's really a huge proponent of musical education, so it's nice to know he acknowledges his place in that continuum.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And of course we're feeling our connection, it's the connection in the musical world to that whole wonderful world of great icons.
You're one of them, Nancy. Thank you so much for spending this half hour with me. It's been a delight as always to chat with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Okay.
Enjoy the concert.
Thank you. Enjoy the concert.